Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this. Engage now. This is AngleEQ, and it is the EQ I wasn't able to use for a console design. Now there's a reason for this. I started trying to do a new style of filter. I don't know whether I'm necessarily just reinventing something that somebody's already done. Sometimes that happens, sometimes not. This one perhaps not, because, well, I'll get to that. I tried to design a filter that would let me do a really steep cutoff. For instance, let me throw on a drum track. And you can do this. Or we have a low frequency control, and we can do this. He says as nothing happens. Bear with me. Must not have low enough frequencies. So here's the thing. This is a bit of a strange creature. And what it does, see, that explains what was happening there, is the mid-low frequency and the mid-high frequency don't work quite the same. This was designed to be one of those subtractive EQs that I do. I like building EQs where if you break stuff into filtered bands, you can subtract the bands from each other, and then they will add back together again to perfect unaltered sonics. This did not work for this one, and I'll show you why. And I might throw in an update on this if it turns out I can fix it up and make it better. But let's get back to the drums, and I'll show you what I thought I was doing. See, it responds too. See, we were able to make it be the filter I wanted it to be. So what we're hearing, forgive me as I derp around with this. You will be derping around with it in your own time. But I'm still kind of exploring and discovering what even this is. It is a multi-band filter, which was supposed to be a subtractive EQ, meaning, well, when I say it, what I mean is you can do the high frequency band, you subtract that from the mid, well, you do the mid frequency band, subtract that from dry, and you get the high frequency band. Then you take the low frequency band out of the mid, and so on and so forth. And if you assemble them back together, you get perfect audio. It's one small problem. If we go back to this, we'll find we don't. It's changed it. Even when it's set flat. And the reason is because this is not the kind of low pass that you can subtract and get a neat, clean high pass out of. I'll show you again. If we do this with it, here's a filtery-like behavior, but there's an issue with that. If you try to do the other thing, for instance, keep only highs, that's not as good as being a neat, clean filter as it should be. It took a huge amount of work even to get that working. What ended up happening was I did my low-pass filter, which you can plainly hear by doing this. Sorry, if I do this, turns out we can make it work this way. I thought I would take those subsonics, those low frequencies, subtract them, and then get mid-range and be able to assemble these things back together again, and that did not happen. What's going on is the low frequency thing is subtracting. It works with sort of the angle of the slew rate. It's complicated to explain. I barely understood it as I was doing it. Means you can do this. But when you do that, it's acting like a really steep brick wall style filter, but it's also sort of phase rotating everything around like crazy while it's doing it. So I took that style of sound with what sounds like a really steep filter in there and subtracted it and found that the high pass I tried to make out of it essentially did nothing. It didn't take away any low frequencies to speak of. It didn't work as a filter. It became a tone coloring thing. So that's not actually a brick wall filter. It's some weird other thing. And as a result, when you do the same with the high frequency, what I ended up having to do is for every stage that this operates, and this algorithm runs lots of different stages. It's many poles of this filtering, but in order to make it act like a high pass, I had to subtract dry from, subtract the filtered section from dry at every single point using the number of poles of the filter, which could be lots, and use, if it was like 5 poles, I would have to subtract 1/5 of dry. It sounds like this when you do it. And the low frequencies have a sound too, but then when you bring in the mid frequencies, it becomes very unpredictable. And drums. So all this is theoretically set flat. That's supposed to be flat. Listen how crazy that is. You can get stuff out of this, and again, see the high, mid, and low? This is supposed to be flat. This is what really is there. And this is what it thinks is flat. Which is why we have a dry-wet fader that also allows for inverse. Again, it's supposed to be flat. This is what you get when you mess with these controls. Or in phase. See, it acts like I'm pulling mids out or boosting them. But it's just a weird thing. So I can't use this for my work was in efforts of coming up with good EQs for things like console H, and especially trying to think of something for console O, which is what I'm going to need to use for the symphonic version, which should also work for like ambient, a lot of things where the acoustic space is important to accurately get. So yeah, this is AngleEQ. It's a weird, strange thing. And you get to use it even though I'm not able to use it for what I had intended. I wanted to have something that would give me nice, clean cutoffs. I do have an idea for a way that I could end up doing it after all. I'm going to try doing a variation on biquad filters assembled together to make a Bessel roll-off rather than a Butterworth roll-off. Because the thing about that, those are basically just different steepnesses of filtering. And I'm using Butterworths in things like my isolator filters. But you can also do Bessel at multiple levels. It's not just one amount of roll-off. You can have steeper Bessel filters, but they're assembled out of slower filters, and you need to use different frequencies when you're doing it with Bessel filters. It's quite interesting. That looks like it's bearing fruit for being able to use something that'll work for a symphonic. In fact, I'm already using it on some of my new reverb designs because I got a couple of reverbs coming up. I've been working on that area quite hard at the moment. And literally right now I have a bunch of stuff processing away on my machine like I showed you before. I continue to keep working on that. In this case, I'm using 3 different parameters for evaluating potential reverb sounds and widened. I got it running 200 times faster than before so that I could widen the randomness going into it rather than making assumptions about what the arrangement of the householder matrix needed to be in order to be best. Because it's like maximizing diversity going into that evaluation is going to get me cooler sounds coming out the other end. And so now I have 3 different evaluation functions rather than just one. One of them is seeing how much each of the reverb returns repeats the same reverb timing, and that's really important. Then I've got one that is measuring the spacing between silences and evaluating how much distribution between the spacing I can have, which is helping for the simpler ones, such as the 4x4 matrices. And that's what's going into a program, a plugin coming out called Garden, which is going to be 4x4 matrices, but with the maximum possible diversity of room tone. That's underway, and the Bessel filter is going to be part of its sound, and I'm also going to give maximum options for building in a pre-delay. So I've got some ideas about how I can go about doing that. But then the 5x5s, the ones that I'm currently calculating, I need to evaluate what each of these different evaluation functions means. Because what I've been doing with just having them not stack up on top of each other's delay times is what's been getting me as far as I've got, but it doesn't always help with metallicness. I think dealing with the spacing between will help with metallicness, and I also have a way of calculating how often the delay sound is louder than it just was. Like how often does it change polarity in that way? And I'm tracking that as well. And the evaluation function is also capable of incorporating that and deciding that it shouldn't be having the reverb tail like sputter dynamically. It should be able to fall off very smoothly and evenly. And I'm currently running tests to isolate each of these qualities so I can listen to them and find out what each of those things sounds like. And then I will have a control on my evaluation stuff that is currently evaluating. I can do like 10 different iterations of it at a time, and each of those over the course of about 9 hours can evaluate 16 million options. And this is how I'm doing it. Like when you get Garden, this is what produced that. But I want to tune the tonal qualities of the reverbs that I'm generating. So I'm being very busy. And I hope you like AngleEQ. That is not the only angle thing, by the way. I've got another one called Angle Filter that might prove interesting. But for now, enjoy the weird reverb that didn't work. I find that what it does is it produces this very processed kind of sound, so maybe it acts a little bit like a particular big consoles that just had a lot of circuitry going on, and it really sort of reshapes those a lot. It tends to produce funny comb filtery effects as well. And I think it's basically just, this is a weird thing. It doesn't act like a normal EQ. It changes the sound aggressively. And if you dial things in by ear, maybe you'll get neat sounding sounds out of it. That would be my hope anyhow. Who could ask for more? I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.